Good morning. So shall we start with a brief introduction of about yourself, ma'am? About,
Okay.
about the
I
background, about
Yes.
whatever you've done.
So I'm Nitya Sriram. I am a educational psychologist as per se, but my chosen field of work has been education and the learning and memory part of it. I chose to be a Cuemath expert because I love teaching math. It's a passion for me. So I love. So that's one of the reasons I became a Cuemath expert. And in my previous avatar, I was also an applied microbiologist. So you can say my science has been my domain of interest all along. And the brain and how it functions is one of the reasons why I chose to be an educational psychologist and not a clinical psychologist. So that is one of the reasons. That's basically it. I'm a mother of two teenagers who have gone through all the ups and downs of school life and math phobia and doing all those stuff. And yeah, that's basically about me.
Very nice, ma'am. So it's a very interesting combination that you've chosen psychology and maths, right? So it's
Yes.
not something you find very often. So according to you, then, ma'am, you'll have a better perspective as to why students have this fear towards mathematics. Why do you think that happens? What is the sort of your understanding said so far, as in like according to you, because of the field you've studied?
Yes. So mostly, if you see these kids who have this kind of math anxiety or in a more broadest perspective of a math phobia, it is more to do with actually achieving some results in the field of math rather than the subject itself. 90 percentage it is to do with that. What we call arithmophobia is totally different. That is a fear of numbers. It comes under anxiety disorder. That is a totally scientific different psychological disorder. That is not our area of concern as far as school kids are concerned. It's more to do with the anxiety of achieving something. Let's say all of us would have learned cycling, swimming. Okay, when I was around 8 years old, somebody pushed me into a river. My cousin pushed me into a river. Till date, I have an hydrophobia. Of
Right.
course, when I grew up, I was more of a logical thinker. I kind of overcame some part of it and learned how to at least float and uh, swim to save myself. I'm not a great swimmer, and if you given a choice between swimming as an activity or cycling or walking, obviously I'll choose cycling or walking. So that phobia is still there. That hydrophobia is still there. I still can't go near large bodies of water and feel comfortable. The same happens with kids. The earlier on in their formative years, if they have faced certain learning gaps for various issues, or if they have faced repeated, what I would call repeated defeat in their uh, uh, accessibility to win over a subject or something, then that phobia kind of, these are actually anxieties which were left unanswered in their formative years. So over a period of time, the child kind of forms a perception that I am not good at this subject, I cannot do math.
Right.
And there are also a lot of other uh, uh, what would you call reasons behind this. Not just this is one of the major reasons. Other reasons being, many times you would have heard mothers say, I'm not good at math, so my kid is also not good at math. Obviously he can't do math, she can't do. That is again a very stereotyping of it, not at all necessary. Now in the age of multiple intelligence, it is definitely a myth and not a fact. Okay, then there are certain ethnicities are good at math and these people cannot be good at math. Again, a big myth and definitely not doesn't have any grounds for. It's not based on facts at all. Fourth,
Okay.
and the most important, and which is the most overlooked reason being, in their formative years, if the subject has not been introduced as it should have been, or it has not been taught as it should have been, then there is a definitive math phobia and a math anxiety more. These kids, when you see most of the time our assessments are time based, and teachers pride themselves on setting a very good question paper. I don't know if you're familiar. In a school setup, generally, there is a rule. I come from a long line of teachers. So I've seen my aunt, my mom, my aunts and sisters, everybody setting question papers. The question paper, there is a logic, there is a science behind that also. The assessment paper should be in such a way, if it is set for 3 hours, the teacher should be able to complete it in 2 hours and still get full marks. Okay, that is generally the
Got it.
idea behind the question paper. So most of our assessments are time bound. And when you put that stress of time and accuracy on the child, many of them develop an anxiety. The same child, when you take out that time limit or when you take out that accuracy limit and say, okay, I'm giving you a range, you can score between you anywhere from 60 to 80 is fine with me. And you can use, let's say, 1 to 1.5 hours, depends on you. You say that, that anxiety automatically goes down. I've seen kids who perform fantastically in class. The same child, when I put them in an exam hall, they are like, "Is this is this the same student who's writing the exam?" You doubt yourself. That much of anxiety these kids develop. So
Right.
there's a
Thank you.
congruence of.
That's very interesting.
Mm,
Right. So you brought out an earlier point, referring back to your earlier point. You said it was the fear of math was different from maths anxiety or math phobia or arithmophobia. How is that different from this one? Contrasting all that you've said, the fear of maths to
mm.
anxiety of maths. Can you sort of
Oh, let me
elaborate
put
as
it
to
like
why this?
this first. On a positive note, math anxiety can be overcome at any age. Like
Okay.
how I overcame my hydrophobia, which were developed at the age of 8 years when I was almost, I think, 32. 32
Mm.
is when I learned how to swim. So at any age, that anxiety can be overcome. It was not
Okay.
phobia actually per se, it was more of anxiety looking at large bodies of water. So
Right.
math
Right.
anxiety can be overcome at any age. Whereas
Right.
arithmophobia is a more of a disorder where the idea of numbers or quantification itself scares the person. That's a psychological disorder that is developed for various other reasons than learning process or learning gaps. So
Okay.
math phobia also to some extent, I would say now it has also become fashionable among girls, teenage girls, especially to say I'm not good at math. I don't know why they think they should not be good at math. So math phobia is more like that, according to me. So it
Right.
is still, let's say, it is treatable. Still, we can overcome that with the correct set of tools and approach. It is still overcome. It can still be
Okay.
overcome.
Wonderful. So, how now that you've come to the point or the fact that it can be overcome, how can what would you suggest to overcome this mathematics? How would
Okay.
you go about? What would you suggest or advise?
First is the belief system. First thing the teacher or the parent has to work against is the belief system that I am not good at this subject or I am not a math is not my cup of tea. That belief system needs to be eroded from the child's mind. How we go about it is more like you give them small steps, small successes that leads to a subsequent big win. So that
Mm,
is how the belief system has to be eroded. Then
right.
inculcating the habit of being an active learner in the child. I know
Mm,
the school system, neither us, we have time for this, but that active learning process needs to be there. The child needs to learn. Example, I'll tell you. Concept, you know that math is more based on concept learning than I believe in the concept of learning than in actually teaching them the procedures. But sometimes we do teach them the procedures because we are facing unit tests, half yearly exams, annual exams. So we do teach them certain tricks. Okay. So when we teach them the concept, what happens is the child kind of gains this confidence that yes, I can do this problem. Yes, I am able to solve this problem. That active learning. Now, active learning, is it just learning the concept? No, it is also questioning the concept. An active learner is one who questions the concepts rather than just learns the concept. Okay, so that is one thing. Then there is a roadmap, according to me. I always ask the children if they are in their elementary school or high school to tell me what do they feel as their inadequacies in math. Where do you think you are not able to perform, or what do you think are your inadequacies? List them down. When you list them down, you are kind of committing that, yes, I have a problem in this. That's again a psychological approach to it. So you list them down. Then once you have listed them, I prioritize. Okay, there are certain things which are actually piggybacking on some of your belief systems, and there are certain things that have happened because of some certain learning gaps. Okay, so then I try and choose the simplest that can be overcome and show the child that, yes, see, if I do this, this particular statement becomes false. So like this, you can slowly erode away the belief system. Then draw a roadmap for the child. Some many times they are not, they though they think they know everything, they do not have the wherewithal to have a concrete plan to overcome this. So we as teachers or parents, we need to draw the roadmap for them, and then you identify the resources for them. You do not tell them, okay, now I've told you that your problem is only because lack of practice, go on practice. No, that's not how it's done. Then subsequently every day you give the child five problems. Make him practice the 10 minutes, 15 minutes, commit him to the 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Slowly that anxiety is overcome. So this is how you turn a child who does not want to learn math into a person who's willing to try. Then comes success and becoming a good mathematician. That is still down the road.
Wonderful, ma'am. So this is, so let me just go back then. So you've said these are this wonderful tips to overcome anxiety. But
Yeah.
how do you first of all recognize that there is anxiety? How do you know that the student is suffering from that? What are the signs that parents and teachers should look out for to sort of
When the parent is very willing to enroll the child in a Cuemath class and the child is not at all willing to come to class, you know that the child has some problem. Okay, that is one definitive sign. Okay, jokes apart. The other part being, yeah, in younger children, obviously they always want to play and they don't want to sit in a classroom. Okay. Apart from that, one of the reasons the child, there are a lot of physical manifestation comes in terms of anxiety, severe anxiety. I have seen kids like tomorrow, if next week is the math exam, they start showing symptoms from this week. I'm feeling I have a headache, auntie. I can't come for class today. My stomach is not all right. I can't. I'm running a temperature. Those are anxiety attacks of the impending examination. That apart, when a child comes to me, I always assess them on their current level of math, irrespective of their grade. I start from giving them simple questions like, I dictate a number. Let's say if it's a third grade child who has come to me for a class, and I give him a number like 19,267. Can you write this in numeral and number name? Okay. So later on, we will be discussing the types of learners. The reason I'm doing this is I want to check the auditory and the perception and the writing, the knowledge of the concept knowledge of the child. Then I ask them, can you tell me what is the place value of 2? At third grade level, the child is supposed to know. Many kids will do all these very beautifully and come away. And then I move on to little difficult problems like if there is a let's say 30 kids in a class and each of them need to have, you're going to distribute 2 chocolates to each of them for your birthday. How many chocolates does that make? So again, it is more of how they've understood the concept, how they are applying. Or I tell them more practical thing like your mother buys 1 liter of milk for 30 rupees per liter. She has bought milk only for 25 days this month. How much would it cost her? That kind of practical issues that. So that grade level assessment itself, when you give them, some kids are very comfortable with numerical math, but when it comes to little bit of this, let's say word problems or story problems at that age, whatever it's called, that kind of develops an anxiety. Now, I also learn from, I also see in kids what happens is there are different types of this anxiety that I see. One is kids who are very comfortable with the procedure. You give them even a 5-digit number, they happily add it up, no issues at all. The moment I put the 5-digit number as a number name and not give it to them as a numeral, they struggle. They struggle. So that is
Right.
one thing. One place where you can easily find out is finding the place values, like expanded form and place values. Supposing
Right.
216 is equal to
Mm.
dash once. Even the parents have a problem with that question. Ma'am, they've given only
Mm.
one, so are we supposed to write only 6 once? Why? How will
Mm.
it be only 6 months? There are 216 ones there to make up for 216. Even parents
Right.
have a problem with that question. So that
Right.
kind of
Right.
concept based, that kind of learning
Right.
gaps, which are very subtle but still there. Why this is important?
Right.
Why understanding the nuance of a question? Obviously, we know when they come to their elementary school and high school, most of the questions are word based, and you need to decode the question for you to understand what's being asked. So that is one
Right.
way of assessment. So it is very easy to
Right.
find out in kids how they
Right.
where they suffer.
Okay. So, so let's say the teacher recognizes this.
Hmm.
Maybe the teacher is a little bit more experienced by teaching multiple.
Hmm.
How, what should the teacher be doing? What would you say a teacher can do to reduce these sort of gaps?
Okay. See, one thing is giving the child might be going to a grade 4 in school, but his concept knowledge or his math ability might be only of a grade 3. Then you give them a
Mm.
lower grade book and start them off with that. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes kids perceive this as you're without labeling them, you are kind of demotivating them. So in that case,
Correct.
what I do is then I go in for the detailed, like I said, I go in for the larger picture. Then I see whether the child's problem is with the language, with the numerical ability, or the application part of it. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
theoretical or application part of it. Then I go there. So most of these kids, some of these kids can be very good at their language ability. They'll have very good language ability, but their problem will be the math concept as per se, not knowing how to divide, what
Right.
understanding what is fraction. Okay, so depending
Right.
on that, I still can allow him to do the grade 4 book, but not the topics that I know that he's going to struggle with. Along with that, I also give him a topic that he's going to be really good at. So I start
Okay.
off two
Okay.
topics simultaneously, telling him that because I know this is very easy for you. We'll also work on this simultaneously because I know you're going to need extra practice on this. That is one way of approach. Yes, there are kids whom you cannot do this with. You have to put them one grade level. So how do I do that? Again, I have a one-to-one with the child where I tell them, see, we are going to practice this so that your current grade level becomes super easy for you. So people will start recognizing that your math ability has increased and you're doing better at it. So let's start this.
Mm.
In all this, I try to keep away the concept, this idea of marks, grades away from it. I never tell a
Got it.
child,
You
I
keep that
never
up.
promise him, you do this, you will get 90% mark, you will get 10% mark. I never tell them. This is learning because you learn the subject for the subject, not because you will get more marks. That is a byproduct. That will come automatically. The moment you know good multiplication and you have a unit test on multiplication, you will score automatically. So
Right. Right.
the main idea of the teachers is to facilitate and motivate. The role
Right.
of the
Right.
teacher is to facilitate and motivate. And teaching a concept to a child, each child is different. Each child is different.
Right.
Introducing the concept to each child is different. To me, this piece of tissue looks very small. Yes,
Right.
and I am a very neat person, so I fold it like this and keep. The moment I give it to a child, he's going to crumple it like this. Correct?
Right.
And for a toddler, picking up this is a big achievement. So
Right.
identify where your student is and cater to that. Cater to that.
Right.
Do not stop
Right.
him from learning, but cater to his needs in that particular topic. Just because he's not doing good in fractions doesn't mean he's not going to be good at shapes and patterns or in data handling. He might still be good there. So don't kind of stereotype or box him in saying that he cannot do this. He or she cannot do this or not capable of doing it. So be a
Right. Right.
facilitator and a motivator. That is the main role of the teacher.
Wonderful, man. So that is a good, very very interesting. So how would you increase interest in math
Mm.
for these
Okay.
students if they're you
We
said
are
how
talking
can we
about
make
this.
math more and more interesting?
We are talking about Gen Z. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I am this Gen X person. So there is already a gap of two generations. Okay. So what worked for me, understand first that what worked for us will not work for them, may not work for them,
Correct.
may not work for them. Accept it.
Right.
Okay. So again, what motivates them? Tell me what interests kids these days. What are the things that interest kids these days? Tell me. You tell me. Have you? You
Mm,
must have come across
uh,
kids. Anything. I mean, generally, I'm not
uh,
talking about subjects.
okay, what would interest them? I think I don't know, video games maybe, some
Yes.
sort of a game,
Fantastic. Yes.
maybe some comics, maybe, especially if it's boys and they like their X-Men and all those
Hey,
action figures, so things like
very
that.
good. Very good.
Maybe.
Hey, that's again stereotyping. I'm a great fan of Marvel.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just saying, especially. So maybe this is where I've become Gen Y. So this is my sense of it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's one thing. Maybe stories. Stories
Yes.
would be another
Story.
thing that everyone can relate to.
Yes. Yes.
And what else? Maybe some sort of a movie. These movies that they watch, which they all
Anything that has got
music.
visuals, anything that's got
Uh-huh.
visuals interests them. Anything that's got
Okay,
visuals interests them. For grade
interesting.
6 this year, when I was teaching them fractions, I know they've been doing fractions from grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. So I told them they have to come up with a
Hmm.
symmetrical, they have to take some symmetrical object in their house, but come up with an
Hmm.
improper fraction on that particular symmetrical object.
Hmm.
That was
Interesting.
the
Right.
problem statement. So you can take
Right.
any, you can take a spoon, you can take a plate, take whatever you want. Just draw an improper fraction on that and show it to me.
Hmm.
So I was testing how much they understand or appreciate fractions and the shape it comes about with.
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
fractions
Hmm.
actually define your shapes finally.
Right.
Yes. Have you ever
Right.
tried cutting a square cake in any other way other than either a triangle or a squares or rectangles?
No, I've never thought of it. That actually, no, I've never done that. No, it's interesting you
Yeah.
asked. No.
Yeah.
Right.
So I asked my class, draw a square and draw as
Right.
many circles into it. And
Hmm.
imagine that to be a cake. So I don't want to waste any part of the cake.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
So again,
Interesting.
you're making the child think. You're making the child
Right.
think what
Right.
they have learned as idea, what they have learned as ideas and facts, and trying to make them form the synapses into a concept or an idea of their own and visualizing it. Visualizing actually helps. It also reduces your anxiety. And you let me tell you the and for such what would you call bizarre problems for want of a better word, the person who actually never solves a single problem correctly in class is the one who comes up with the best ideas because
It's interesting.
they are not boxed in by your rules.
Right. 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 Right.
So
Interesting.
there was this kid who took a tumbler, a glass,
Right.
okay, and then he drew lines on it. He drew slanting lines on it, all like this. If I can show you, it's in an S shape,
Hmm.
and he came up with an
Hmm.
improper fraction.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Right. Right.
So I was asking him, is the tumbler symmetrical? It was a plastic glass that we use for all these parties and stuff. He said, yes, ma'am, I can. It's actually, it can be divided into half or four pieces, so it is symmetrical. But since I've drawn it like S, there are improper number of fractions around it.
Right.
And he came,
Very interesting.
I think total was around, he came around 17 parts out of 22 parts or something like that.
Okay.
So it was
Okay.
awesome. So these are the kids who will actually come up with all these ideas and because they are not boxed in.
Interesting.
So again, so if
Right.
do I categorize him as a he cannot do math? No, he can definitely do math, except that his way of doing math is little different.
Right. 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 This is I mean, this brings me to the next sort of a question, ma'am. So then it seems like that there are certain strengths and certain limitations to each kid, right? So what in your experience is among the top learning disabilities that you have seen?
Okay. Like I said, many kids actually have a good math ability and math understanding. It is their language that is
Mm-hmm.
actually a problem. But even there, I don't see it as a learning disability. Many of them do not have a learning disability. Many of them
Mm-hmm.
have what is called as a learning gap because the language was not inculcated. When I say 4 times 3 to my Columbus student, he understands what I'm trying to say. 4 into 3 is 12. But when I say the same thing to a person who goes to a local school here, 4 times 3, he's like, ma'am, are you asking 4 threes are?
Right.
There's a language
Terminology. Right.
terminology
Right.
difference. See? So is that child bright and this child not bright? No, they are both equally bright. The problem being the language. Again, this child, when you give them a continuous problem like let's say a plane flies from point A to point B and covers a distance of 316 kilometers, it uses up 16 liters of fuel per hour and all those things. He will know how to do it, except that he does not understand what's being asked. So
Okay.
the learning
Okay.
disability is not there. It is more of a learning gap. So majorly, many
Interesting.
of them have something called dyslexia. So, and we kind of put everything under dyslexia, thanks to all our Bollywood and other food films. We kind of put everything under dyslexia and say this child is dyslexic. Child is not dyslexic. Dyslexia is only in terms of language. When it is in terms of language, it is called dyslexia. What we
Okay.
kids who have certain math difficulties, definitely math difficulties. In a minute, I'll tell you how to identify math difficulties in kids of that category. So that is called dyscalculia. Then you have something
Okay.
called dysgraphia. Kids who cannot understand all your mensuration problems. How can you not
Okay.
understand length into breadth? It is because they have something called dysgraphia, because for them that uh, direction and language, that graph doesn't make sense to them. So dysgraphia. Then dyspraxia is again kids who have a problem with right and left and certain other things. The list is little longer, but these are the major four things that you're likely to come across. Now, in
Okay.
dyscalculic kids, how do you know a child is not having math phobia and just dyscalculia? So,
Right.
all of us, when we started writing, we would have definitely written 9 as P. Writing
Mm-hmm.
9, we would have written it as P. All of us would have done it. That is a learning process because the way your uh, brain infers the mirror image and then turns it back. So, that
Mm-hmm.
age, let's say UKG to second standard, if the child is doing a mirror image, it is okay. But if the child is consistently doing this problem, writing
Mm-hmm.
3 as a double C or something, then consistently, if they do that, then there is something. In little older children, when they have a problem with their places, in a
Mm-hmm.
continuum, these kids cannot place numbers on a continuum. When I say 26, your brain immediately puts it in between 25 and 27.
Mm-hmm.
For kids, that continuum does not exist. So they will have a problem writing numbers in a place value properly and then adding them up. They are likely to forget the carryover number they have taken. These are the
Mm-hmm.
problems that you will generally face with these kids. So dyscalculia needs to be diagnosed by a professional, not at classroom level, but these kids can still be taught in a classroom level.
Okay, interesting. Interesting, very interesting. Things are so much to it that is. So, you've covered that. What, according to you, the last question, ma'am, according to you, let's just sum this up. What, according to you, best describes conceptual learning of mathematics? You would just, I think you mentioned it, but
Mm,
maybe you can add a little bit more to
yeah.
the,
Now, what
if
is
you wanted
concept?
to sort
What is
of
the concept?
describe, yeah, sure, ma'am, go on, ma'am. Go on, sorry.
What is the concept? In this lockdown, have you ever tried to cook, Sriram?
Say that again, ma'am. Cook. Have I ever tried to cook? Yeah, I've sort of through the lockdown I did do some experimentation because I had some time in my hand and I was at home. So
Okay.
yes, ma'am,
How
I
did it
have.
turn out?
Sorry, ma'am.
How did it turn out? The dish, how did it turn out?
Uh oh, right. So that's a good point. I think among the first things that I tried, I just followed everything blindly from the YouTube video, so it turned out quite good, and that gave
Okay.
me your and the yeah, right. So it turned out quite okay. I think
It
I
turned out
wouldn't say
well.
it was bad.
Okay. So did
Yeah.
but did you depend on the YouTube video or on what the person who was showing the video talking
I was on what the person was saying,
saying? So you are more
reading
an
what the person.
auditory person and you understand the language, so it was easier for you. Okay. Now as a
Correct.
teacher, I'm writing a problem on the board. Okay.
Right.
A child in my class who's a visual learner will depend on what I'm writing on the board. And the child who's an
Hmm.
auditory learner will listen to what I am saying. Okay.
Right.
And a child
Right.
who's a kinesthetic learner or a tactile learner will start doing on his own. Now, the
Right.
holistic person who has a little bit of all these three put together, three or four thing put together, will is actually the person who will grasp the problem faster and will might most of the time be the what would you call spoil sport and say, "Ma'am, I already finished," or "I know the answer." Okay. Now, what are the process? This looks very simple, right? When I say 3 plus
Hmm.
5, it is 8. For you, it
Hmm.
sounds very simple. 3 plus 5 is 8. So when I say
Hmm.
that you have 10 balloons, your friend has 15 balloons, what is the total number of balloons?
Hmm.
You immediately you have
Hmm.
to add and 25. Okay. Imagine a
Hmm.
second grader at this level.
Hmm.
Okay, and I've written the sum on the board. Your you
Hmm.
have 10 balloons, or let's put some name. Amit has 10 balloons, and Rakesh has
Hmm.
15 balloons. How many balloons do they
Hmm.
have total? Now,
Hmm.
math is basically about working memory. It needs a
Hmm.
lot of working memory. Okay, the working
Hmm.
memory is what helps you actually solve any problem. So let's
Hmm.
say in Bangalore kind of traffic, you know that you have to reach a place in 10 minutes. Your working memory immediately tells you, I need to run or jog or walk rather than depending on the auto or the cab to reach that place in 10 minutes.
Correct.
Okay, so that's your working memory. So now at that level of, let's say at the grade level 2, there are various process concepts. I mean, when you look at a problem, what sounds very simple, there's a lot of complicated things going on inside our brain. First is to perceive the problem statement. Okay, what she has written. Okay, I've read it, I've understood it. Okay. Second comes the describing the pattern or the prior knowledge. Oh, I've done this kind of sums at home. Mom gave me a lot of practice. I've done, so I think this is addition. That is one category of students who will say immediately yes, addition, and start doing it. Okay. Then comes the construct questions. So what are they asking me? Generally, if you see in a few math class, these are the questions that we queue on. We ask them like, what did you understand? What are they asking? What is given? What are they asking you to do? So instead of the
Hmm.
child doing it inside the brain, we are trying to do it for the child by asking them these queuing questions. Okay. Then we
Hmm.
ask
Hmm.
the conjuncture about the process. So now you know you have Amit has 10, Rakesh has 15. Now you tell me what should you do? What are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to add or subtract? Then the child tells you
Correct.
addition. Then do you know how to add? Yes. Now which part of it will you add first? Will it be the units place or the tens place first? Then the child tells you units place. Now that's where the concept learning, where you taught the child how to add, is being applied in a problem, and then the child arrives at the answer of 25. Then we push them a little forward and say 25 balloons. You're supposed to write the units. You cannot just write 25. That is the whole process. Now, this whole process, imagine this taking place inside your brain in a matter of few seconds. That's
Hmm.
conceptual learning. I'll put it even more simple.
Hmm.
You have certain ideas and facts in your brain that is all floating around as, let's say, small dots here and there. Okay. Then I
Hmm.
give you a problem or an application oriented problem. Okay. So you
Hmm.
come up with a pattern using these dots and lines, you connect them, and then you come up with the pattern. Your pattern, let's say it looks more like a inverted Z or something. My pattern looks more like a Y. Doesn't matter. We have both solved the problem. Doesn't matter. You
Right.
have used certain
Right.
ideas and facts. I've used certain ideas and facts. Now connecting these dots.
Mm.
That is the whole process of what you have learned in your classroom, transferring that into your real life or an application.
Mm.
And that is where you
Mm.
have understood the concept. Now, taking this concept and further applying it into other areas. I know ratio and
Mm-hmm.
proportion. I've learned it in school. Applying that to my cooking, where I know where I'm instead of
Right.
cooking for 4 people, I'm going to be cooking for 8 people. So I need to upscale this to this much or downscale this because there's only
Right.
2 people for lunch today. That is
Right.
application. That is the application of concepts. That is where I've understood
Right.
the concept and applied.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay.